Everybody. So we got this TV over here. See that TV? So we got a TV at Aish, and because we have a couple programs going on. And when I saw that, I kind of joked to somebody yesterday. I said, I should broadcast my weekly Torah drasha like they do in the Reform synagogues. I'm sure plenty of people would like to tune in maybe and watch it on a Saturday morning if they can't make it to shul. Obviously joking, we can't do that. But then I was thinking, well, why not do something like that? Why not share with you what I spoke about on Shabbat? Okay, it was last week's Parsha. Still, the ideas are universal. They'll apply for next year again. So here goes. Here's last week's drasha that I talked about. I talked about Parshat Matot. And Parshat Matot talks about vows. And the very first pasuk, the first verse, talks about if a man takes a vow, he's got to keep his word. Lo yachel devaro. He can't cheapen his words by not fulfilling what he says. Okay. Then it talks about if a woman takes a vow. And then all of a sudden, we get 14 verses of so many details about if a woman takes a vow. And it depends, is she married? Then her husband has to okay that vow or oath that she took. Or if she's still in her father's house, then dad has to okay that vow or oath. Or let's say she's kind of in between. They both need to do it. And it gives all these details about if a woman takes a vow and all the subtleties and all the things that go into it. The guy takes a vow, one verse dealt with. Woman takes a vow, all of a sudden it gets so complicated. So one explanation is, Judaism is sexist, and if a woman does something, it's got to be okay by the guy. Okay, maybe some will look at it that way. It's a little bit deeper than that. And the commentary, Samson Raphael Hirsch, kind of indicates this in his commentary to it, because he basically focuses on the fact that a woman has more power and influence in a lot of ways than a guy does. You see, if a guy takes a vow, what is a vow or an oath? It's something he's changing in his life. Who's that going to affect? Generally, just him. Whereas if a woman decides to change something significant in her life, that's going to have a deeper ripple effect on those around her. An example of this that I've seen many, many times, when families become religious. If the guy wants to keep Shabbat, the husband wants to keep Shabbat, the dad wants to keep Shabbat, and he's getting more and more influence and he's learning more and he wants to do more of it. So, generally that's what he does. They kind of look at that as like, he's got a new hobby, pickleball, golf. Okay, that's his thing, that's his shtick. On the other hand, if a woman turns around and says and decides that she wants to start keeping Shabbat and being more traditional in terms of Jewish law, generally speaking, that has a much deeper impact on the family. Usually, the husband and kids, not always, but a lot of times, there's a greater chance that other family members are going to go around and become what she is doing than if just the husband, the dad, does it. Women have that greater, deeper impact. The Maharal gives a very interesting indication of this. He's a commentary when he talks about the difference between men and women. And he says, Ha'ish mevi v'ha'isha mitakenet lo. The literally translates as the man brings in, and the woman mitakenet, she perfects it, she fixes it for him. This isn't talking about going to the supermarket and he buys the groceries and she prepares dinner. It goes much deeper than that. It's saying that, certainly when we look at the creation of the human being, that's certainly the case. Ha'ish mevi, he just shows up, deposits the seed, the sperm. The woman is the one who's creating it within herself. And so it's the woman who generally has a much more powerful ability to create an awareness of things in this world, in the tangible world. And this is based on the idea that Judaism says that a woman has a bina yetera, which we would translate as a sixth sense. Bina yetera means an added understanding. Women have like this kind of antenna where they're picking stuff up that for men, totally over their heads, totally unaware. Again, this isn't always the case. There's exceptions. There are some men who are super intuitive and perceptive, and some women who are just also out of it. But generally speaking, we say that a woman has this added sensitivity and perception and awareness of things. And therefore, she has a much more powerful impact on things of surrounding us. And so once again, if she's going to turn around and decide to make a wholesale change in her life through an oath or a vow, that's got to get the okay of the rest of the family members, because they're going to be impacted by this much more than if a guy just turns around and he does this. Now, I know this is certainly the case for me personally. I don't know what it is, but if my wife says something, I just can't, that's it. I can't get out of it. I'll give you a silly example, okay? Silly example. She's into fashion, my wife. She works at Banana Republic. She has a sensitivity to this sort of thing. The other day, I sent her a picture of my brother, happens to be, and he had, those fanny packs, those things that they wear across your waist. You keep your documents, your wallet or whatever in there. He's wearing one of those things. Well, she's not a fan of that. Big no-no, big fashion no-no. Thinks it's very, very nerdy. I sent her a picture of it, and her reaction was, yikes. The point is, because she has this attitude of this, and she's expressed that to me, whenever I see one of those things on somebody, I'm like, no, loser, nerd. You shouldn't be doing that. You definitely should not be doing that. Just a small example, but again, if someone else would say this, it wouldn't have that impact on me. If one of my kids said it, whatever. But my wife, when she says something and she expresses a sensitivity to something, I can't lose it. That's it. I'm in. I bought in. And this is perhaps why Jewish tradition says that Geula, the redemption, the ultimate redemption of the Jewish people, it ain't happening through the men. Not happening through the men. Jewish tradition says it's going to happen through the women. Women have that ability to have a much greater impact a lot of times, especially on other humans, and especially in the family, than the men. That's why the Momentum people, Lori Palatnik, her organization, what does she always say? If you have an impact on the mom, then you're going to have an impact on the family. You have an impact on the family. You have an impact on communities in general. And if you have enough impact on different communities, you have an impact on the whole Jewish people and hence the whole world. It starts with the women. Geula, redemption from Egypt, started with the women. That's a whole other shiur class. And ultimately, redemption for the Jewish people is through the women. Have a good Shabbat.